Standing beneath the market bell, while a jealous merchant demanded that her workshop be closed, Mirelda Senn held up a bar of soap that could either save her name or prove that the only man who had ever believed in her was a liar. Rain ran from the edge of the meeting hall roof and soaked the shoulders of her brown wool dress. All around her, the people of Bracken Vale stared at the obese laundress they had mocked for years. Some looked ashamed, others looked eager to see her fail one final time. On the table before the town council sat a poisoned jar of oil, a torn page from her grandmother's notebook, and a pair of mountain boots that seemed to belong to Ivo Vey. Mirelda's powerful hands were shaking, but her voice did not. "You told me a woman like me should know her place," she said, looking straight at the merchant who had tried to ruin her. "Today, you are going to learn exactly where my place is." 3 months earlier, no one in Bracken Vale would have imagined that Mirelda Senn could make a rich man afraid. Most people barely saw her unless they needed a stain scrubbed from a shirt or mud beaten from a blanket. They knew her as the large laundress who lived behind the old dye house, a broad woman with a gentle face, a thick dark braid, and arms made strong by years of lifting wet cloth from steaming tubs. Her hands were red and scarred from harsh lye soap. The skin across her knuckles often cracked in winter, yet she always wrapped clean linen around a customer's fine dress before she wrapped her own bleeding fingers. Bracken Vale sat in a narrow bowl between 2 dark mountain ridges. The town had 1 main street, 1 meeting hall, 1 church, and enough gossip to fill a city. Smoke from the chimneys settled low on cold mornings, carrying the smell of pine, coal, bread, horses, and wet wool. People there liked to say they survived because they looked after one another. Mirelda knew that was only partly true. They looked after people who fit easily into the shape of the town. They brought soup to thin widows with pale faces. They found work for strong young men. They praised quiet women who never asked for more than they were given. Mirelda was too large, too visible, and too willing to speak plainly. Even when she lowered her eyes and kept her voice soft, people noticed the width of her body before they noticed the care in her work. One grey morning near the end of winter, Mirelda stood behind the butcher's shop with a dented tin pail in each hand. Thomas Gree, the butcher, was scraping pale pieces of animal fat from his cutting board into a waste barrel. Mirelda had asked him to save the clean pieces for her. He had agreed because it cost him nothing, but he had not kept the matter private. By the time she arrived, 3 shopkeepers and 2 customers had found reasons to linger nearby. "There she is," called Baron Holt, the owner of Holt's Fine Goods. He stood beneath the butcher's awning in a blue coat with polished brass buttons. His belly was round enough to strain those buttons, but no one in Bracken Vale ever mocked him for it. Wealth had a way of turning the same feature into a sign of comfort in a man and a sign of failure in a woman. "Mirelda, I hear you've finally found a business suited to your great appetite." A few people laughed. Mirelda stopped beside the barrel. "I am making soap, Mr. Holt." "Soap?" He lifted his eyebrows as if she had announced she was building a ship. "From butcher's scraps? From clean rendered fat, wood ash, salt and herbs. My grandmother made it when I was a child." Baron looked slowly from the pails to Mirelda's body. A woman who understood discipline might make a beauty cream. A woman of your size collecting fat sounds more like a warning from the Lord. The laughter came faster that time. Even Thomas turned his face away to hide a smile. Mirelda felt heat climb from her collar to her cheeks. She had heard cruel words all her life, but familiarity did not make them harmless. Each insult found an old bruise and pressed down. She wanted to leave the pails in the mud and walk home. Instead, she bent over the barrel and began choosing the clean pieces. "Waste is only waste when no one has the patience to change it," she said. Baron's smile thinned. He sold imported soap in pale green boxes, each bar wrapped in paper stamped with a silver swan. A bar cost nearly half a laundress's daily wage. He had been amused by Mirelda until that moment. Then he heard something in her answer that sounded less like a dream and more like competition. "Patience cannot fix every flaw," he said. Some things are simply too much. Mirelda lifted both full pails. The weight pulled at her shoulders, but her arms did not bend. Then it is fortunate that I have never been afraid of too much. She walked away while the mud sucked at her boots. The laughter followed her halfway down the lane. At the corner, she nearly collided with a tall man, carrying a bundle of split cedar on one shoulder. He stepped aside without surprise, as if he had heard every word. Ivo Vey was known in Bracken Vale, though no one could say they truly knew him. He came down from the northern ridge every few weeks with herbs, hides, honey, and sometimes strange blue stones washed from mountain streams. He was lean and weather-beaten, with a narrow face, grey eyes, and an old scar that disappeared beneath the collar of his coat. He spoke little. Children said he slept in a cave. Adults said he had once been a soldier, a thief, or both. His eyes moved to Mirelda's pails. "Soap?" he asked. She tightened her grip. "If you have a joke, make it quickly. These are heavy." "No joke." He shifted the cedar. "What will you scent it with?" The question caught her off guard. "Juniper, perhaps. Lavender, if I can afford it." "Lavender is weak after drying. Mountain balm holds longer." Mirelda studied him. There was no smile hiding at the edge of his mouth. "I have never heard of mountain balm. Most people down here have not." He looked toward the ridge, where the peaks vanished into cloud. "My mother used it on winter cracks. Boil the leaves gently. Do not crush the stems. They turn bitter." Before Mirelda could ask another question, he continued down the street. She watched the cedar on his shoulder until he disappeared behind the stable. It was the first time anyone in town had responded to her plan by offering knowledge instead of laughter. Mirelda's laundry stood beside a narrow stream behind the old dye house. The building leaned slightly toward the water, and cold air came through gaps in the boards. Inside were 2 copper tubs, a brick stove, a long table, 6 drying lines, and shelves filled with folded sheets. Her grandmother's black iron soap pot sat beneath the far window. Mirelda had brought it from her family's abandoned cottage after the old woman died. For 9 years, it had gathered dust. That evening, Mirelda washed it until the bottom shone in the firelight. Her grandmother, Mirelda Senn, had not been a soft woman. She had smelled of rosemary, smoke, and rain. She taught Mirelda to read by pointing to labels on medicine jars and made her practice sums by counting eggs. When other children called Mirelda a cow, Mirelda never told her to ignore them. "Ignoring a knife does not make it less sharp," she had said. "Learn who is holding it, then keep your distance." She also taught Mirelda that soap was not merely something that removed dirt. The right soap could calm a rash, clean a wound, soften cloth, and give a tired person one small moment of comfort. Mirelda found Mirelda's notebook wrapped in linen at the bottom of a chest. Its pages were stained with oil and crowded with tiny writing. Some recipes were complete. Others were no more than reminders. 3 measures, winter fat. Ash water until an egg rises. Salt at the first moon. Add balm below the boil. Mirelda remembered watching Mirelda work, but memory was not a measuring cup. She read until midnight, then set her first batch over the fire. It failed before sunrise. The mixture separated into grey liquid and greasy lumps. The smell filled the laundry and clung to Mirelda's hair. She buried the mess behind the shed before customers arrived. Her second batch hardened so quickly that it cracked the wooden mold. Her third remained soft for 6 days, then grew a white film that smelled like spoiled milk. Each failure cost fuel, salt, and hours she could not spend washing clothes. Soon, word reached her customers. Mrs. Pell collected her household laundry and said she could not risk having her linens smell like a slaughterhouse. The innkeeper's wife moved her business to a washer in the next village. Even Father Doran stopped sending the church cloths, though he apologized 3 times while doing it. "It is only until this experiment passes," he said, standing in the doorway with a bundle beneath his arm. "And if it does not pass?" Mirelda asked. He looked at the floor. "People are uneasy. People are always uneasy when a poor woman tries to become something else." Father Doran had no answer. He left with the altar cloth folded against his chest. Mirelda watched him cross the footbridge. Then she closed the door, sat beside the useless molds, and cried. She did not cry prettily. Her breath caught hard in her throat. Her shoulders shook. She pressed both damaged hands over her face and listened to the stove ticking as it cooled. She had saved for 2 years to buy the salt and extra firewood. She had imagined placing neat bars in the market, each one wrapped in brown paper. She had imagined customers touching her work without looking at her body first. Now greasy failures filled the room. Her laundry business was collapsing, and Baron Holt's words moved through her mind like mice behind a wall. Some things are simply too much. A knock came after dark. Mirelda wiped her face and opened the door only a few inches. Ivo stood outside beneath a light snow. A canvas sack hung from one hand. "The laundry is closed," she said. "I did not bring laundry." "Then whatever you brought, I cannot pay for it. I did not ask for money." He set the sack on the doorstep. A clean green scent rose from it, sharp and sweet at once. Mirelda opened the door wider. Inside were bundles of mountain balm, white yarrow, dried pine tips, and a dark red root she did not recognize. "Why?" she asked. Ivo brushed snow from his sleeve. "Because you were right." "About what?" "Waste can change." His gaze passed over the failed molds behind her. He was too observant to pretend he had not seen them. "But the ash water must be tested before it touches the fat. Your grandmother's egg note means an egg should float with a circle of shell above the water, no more than the size of a coin." Mirelda stared at him. "How do you know that?" "My mother made soap." "You said she used mountain balm. She used many things." His answers were always doors opened only an inch. Mirelda wanted to ask where his mother was, why he lived alone, and why his left hand sometimes trembled when he thought no one was watching. Instead, she asked, "Will you show me the right amount?" Ivo came inside. He removed his coat, rolled up his sleeves, and stood beside her at the work table. They tested the ash water with an egg. It sank. Mirelda added stronger liquid from the bottom of the settling barrel. The egg rose too high. Ivo showed her how to weaken it, drop by drop, until only a small circle of shell remained above the surface. "There," he said. "Now it is ready. You could have told me this at the door. You would have tried it alone. I have done most things alone." I noticed. The words were quiet, but they touched something tender. Mirelda turned toward the stove, so he would not see her eyes fill again. They worked through the night. Ivo chopped fat while Mirelda measured. She stirred the pot with both hands, slowly and without stopping. When the mixture thickened enough to leave a trail across the surface, she cooled a spoonful and touched it carefully. Smooth. No grease separated at the edge. "Add the balm now," Ivo said. Mirelda crumbled the leaves between her palms. The scent opened in the steam, clean as a mountain path after rain. She poured the soap into 12 wooden molds lined with cloth. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Ivo slept sitting in a chair beside the stove. Mirelda covered him with an old blanket. In the soft light before dawn, his face lost some of its guarded hardness. She noticed a pale line across his temple and another scar along his wrist. He looked like a man who had survived more than he wished to explain. 2 days later, Mirelda lifted the first firm loaf from its mold. She cut it into bars with a wire. The inside was creamy and even, touched with green from the herbs. She washed one scarred hand in warm water. The soap made a gentle foam. It cleaned away the grease without setting her cracked skin on fire. She stood over the basin, laughing and crying at the same time. She carried the first bar to Ivo's cabin on the lower ridge. The walk took 2 hours. His home was not a cave, but a small stone house built against the mountain, with a tidy stack of wood and herbs hanging under the roof. Ivo was repairing a snowshoe when she arrived. "It worked," she said, holding out the bar. He took it and smelled it. "Too much pine." Her smile fell. Then one corner of his mouth lifted. "But only a little too much." Mirelda laughed so loudly that a crow flew from the roof. Ivo looked startled, then laughed too. It changed his whole face. For one bright moment, Neither of them was the town's unwanted laundress or the strange man from the ridge. They were simply two people standing in cold sunlight with a good bar of soap between them. Mirelda named it Vale Balm. She wrapped each bar in brown paper and tied it with green thread. At first, only 3 people bought it. One was Thomas Gris, who said he needed something for his bloody butcher's hands. One was a miner's wife, whose youngest child had dry skin. The third was an old shepherd who bought anything made with mountain herbs. Within a week, Thomas's cracked knuckles improved. The child stopped waking at night to scratch her arms. The shepherd said the soap cleaned lanolin from his hands better than Baron's silver swan bars. People began coming to the laundry again, not only with clothes but with coins. Mirelda made a rose clay soap for faces, a strong pine soap for work clothes, and a honey and oat bar for children. She kept careful notes on every batch. She wrote the weight of fat, the strength of ash water, the weather, the temperature of the room, and the hour she cut each loaf. Oda's notebook lay open beside a new ledger in which Mirelda made the old knowledge exact. Ivo came down from the mountain twice a week. Sometimes he brought herbs, sometimes he brought nothing, and repaired a shelf or split wood without being asked. Mirelda learned that silence with him was not empty. It was a place where neither of them had to perform. Still, there were things he would not discuss. He never spoke about the years before he came to Bracken Vale. He avoided Constable Wren when they passed in the street. Once, when Mirelda asked about a small mark burned into the leather of his pack, his hand closed over it at once. "It belonged to another life," he said. "Was it a bad life?" His grey eyes rested on her face. "Parts of it." "Are those parts over?" He took a long time to answer. "I hope so." Mirelda told herself that everyone had a right to keep old pain private. Yet a small question settled inside her and stayed there. By spring, she could no longer fill orders alone. That was when Nessa arrived. Nessa Kaur was a young widow with 2 children and no money. Baron Holt had dismissed her from his shop after she dropped a bottle of imported perfume. He kept her final week's wages to pay for the bottle, though the amount was 3 times its value. Nessa came to Mirelda's door with rain on her thin coat and asked if she could scrub floors in return for bread. "I do not need a floor scrubber," Mirelda said. Nessa's face closed. "I understand. I need someone who can learn to cut soap evenly." The young woman looked up. "I have never done that." "Neither had I." Mirelda moved aside. "Come in." Nessa learned quickly. A month later, Mirelda hired Delarue, who had a limp and had been turned away from the inn because guests disliked watching her walk. Then came Aura Bell, a quiet woman with a burn scar across one cheek. Aura had spent years working in kitchens where cooks kept her hidden in the back. Mirelda put her at the front table and taught her to speak with customers. The laundry changed. Fresh shelves lined the walls. Bars of soap cured in long golden rows. Herbs hung from the rafters, filling the room with lavender, pine, mint, and balm. Della sang while she wrapped orders. Nessa brought her children after school, and they did sums beside the stove. Aura became so skilled at mixing colors that her marbled soaps looked like little pieces of dawn. Mirelda paid fair wages every Friday. She also placed a jar beside the ledger and added coins to it from every sale. "This is the winter fund," she explained. "If one of us becomes sick, she does not lose her room or her supper." Della stared at the jar. "No employer does that." "Then perhaps employers should learn." The women began calling the workshop Senn House, though Mirelda never placed the name on the door. Customers arrived from nearby villages. The owner of a hotel in Ashcombe ordered 100 bars. A doctor asked Mirelda to make an unscented soap for his patients. For the first time in her life, Mirelda had enough money to replace her patched brown dress. She chose dark green wool and asked Nessa to help fit it. When she wore it to market, Baron Holt looked at her as though she had stolen something from him. His silver swan soap sat untouched in stacks. He lowered the price, then told people Mirelda's products were unsafe. When that failed, he offered to buy her recipes. "I will give you 20 crowns for the Vale Balm recipe," he said one afternoon, leaning on her counter. Mirelda continued tying a bundle. No. 30. No. You are a laundress, Mirelda. You have been fortunate, but fortune is not the same as business skill. Sell now, before the town grows tired of this little fashion. She placed the finished bundle on the shelf. Is that what happened to your Silver Swan soap? Did the town grow tired of the fashion? His pleasant expression cracked. People are laughing at you behind your back. They used to laugh in front of me. This is an improvement. You think these women are loyal? He glanced at Nessa and Aura across the room. They are loyal to wages. The mountain man is loyal to whatever he is hiding. When your money is gone, you will discover how alone you truly are. Mirelda felt the words, but she did not let him see where they landed. Please leave my workshop. Beran moved closer. His voice dropped. Bracken Vale forgives many things, but it does not forgive a woman who forgets what she is. Ivo entered through the rear door carrying a basket of herbs. He set it down slowly. She asked you to leave. Beran looked at his worn coat and mud-caked boots. And here is the ridge dog. Tell me, Vey, does she feed you scraps for guarding the door? Ivo's eyes became very still. Mirelda had seen that stillness once when a wild dog circled Nessa's children near the stream. It was more frightening than anger. Ivo, Mirelda said softly. He looked at her. She shook her head. After a moment, he stepped away from the door. Beran gave a small, victorious smile and walked out. You should have let me frighten him, Ivo said. He is already frightened. Not enough. Fear makes men like Beran cruel. I would rather make him irrelevant. Ivo studied her, then nodded. That may be colder. My grandmother said a clean revenge leaves no blood on the floor. Your grandmother sounds dangerous. She was. They smiled, but Beran's warning remained in Mirelda's thoughts. That night, she checked the workshop locks twice. When Ivo offered to sleep near the stove, she told him it was unnecessary. She did not admit that part of her wanted him to stay. The first sign of trouble came on a warm Monday in May. A full batch of honey soap turned black in the pot. The smell was sharp enough to make everyone cough. Mirelda ordered the women outside, then carried the pot into the yard, with cloth wrapped around her hands. The mixture had been normal, until she added oil from a sealed jar. Bad oil? Della asked. Mirelda touched one drop to a strip of paper. A blue stain spread across it. Not bad. Changed. They lost 40 bars that day. 2 mornings later, a hotel in Ashcombe sent back an entire order. The soap had caused red patches on 3 guests. Mirelda tested the returned bars and found the same sharp smell. She closed the workshop at once. Until we know what happened, nothing leaves this room, she said. Nessa began to cry. Will we still be paid? Yes. But if there are no sales, the winter jar is not only for winter. Mirelda forced calm into her voice. No one here will miss supper. Inside, fear moved like cold water. 1 spoiled batch could be a mistake. 2 meant a pattern. She opened Oda's notebook to compare the formula and found a clean tear near the center. The page for purifying oil was gone. Mirelda searched every shelf and drawer. The women searched too. By sunset, rain had begun tapping against the windows. Ivo had not arrived for his usual visit. Mirelda went outside to check the back door and saw deep prints in the soft earth beneath the herb window. They had a narrow heel and a broken line across the left sole. She knew that pattern. Ivo's mountain boots left the same mark. For several seconds, Mirelda could not breathe. She remembered Beran's words. The mountain man is loyal to whatever he is hiding. She remembered the burned mark on Ivo's pack, his fear of Constable Wren, and the parts of his life he hoped were over. Had he helped her only to learn the recipe? Had Beran paid him? The thought felt ugly and unfair, yet the missing page and the boot prints lay before her. Aura came to the doorway. What is it? Mirelda stepped over the prints before Aura could see them clearly. Nothing. Go home before the rain grows heavy. She waited alone in the workshop. Every sound made her turn. At midnight, someone tried the front latch. Mirelda took the iron stirring paddle from beside the stove and stood in the dark. "Mirelda!" Ivo called through the door. Relief rose first, followed by fear, so quickly that she hated herself for both. She lit a lamp but did not open the door. "Where were you today?" she asked. Silence. Then, "On the North Ridge." "Alone?" "Yes." "Did you come here last night?" Another pause. "No." Mirelda opened the door. Ivo was soaked through. A small cut crossed his jaw, and mud covered his boots. The left sole bore a broken line. His eyes moved to the paddle in her hands. "What happened?" "2 batches were contaminated. A page was taken from my grandmother's notebook. There are prints beneath the back window." He looked toward the rear of the building. "Mine?" "They appear to be." Pain passed over his face, quiet and deep. "And you think I did it?" "I think I need the truth. I have given you the truth. You have given me small pieces of it. You know soap. You know herbs. You hide from the constable, and you will not tell me why. Now my customers are hurt. My notebook is torn, and your tracks are beneath my window." Ivo looked down. Rain ran from his hair onto the floorboards. "My brother used those boots." Mirelda tightened her grip on the paddle. "You told me you had no family. I said no such thing. I said my old life was over. That is not an answer." "No." He lifted his eyes. "It is not." The silence between them became unbearable. Mirelda wanted him to step forward, open every locked door in his past, and give her a reason to trust him. Instead, he backed away. "Keep the doors barred," he said. "Do not use oil from any jar you did not seal yourself." "Where are you going?" "To find the man wearing my brother's boots." "Ivo, wait." But he turned into the rain. Mirelda watched him disappear beyond the footbridge. She closed the door and leaned against it. Then she lowered the paddle and cried without sound. The next morning, Baron Holt posted a notice outside his shop. It warned that Senn House soap had injured customers and called for the council to close the workshop. By noon, 3 more customers returned their orders. None had been harmed, but fear had reached them before facts. Della's singing stopped. Aura moved through the workshop with her scarred cheek turned toward the wall. Nessa kept dropping the same roll of paper. Mirelda gathered them around the work table. "I will understand if any of you wish to leave." "And go where?" Della asked. "Back to being told my leg makes honest people uncomfortable." Aura placed a bar of soap on the table. "You did not hide me in the back room." Nessa said nothing. Her face was pale. Mirelda reached for her hand. Nessa pulled away so quickly that everyone noticed. "I am sorry," Nessa whispered. "I did not sleep." Mirelda looked at her for a long moment. "Go home. Rest with your children. I can work." "I know. Go anyway." After Nessa left, Mirelda checked the seal book. Every oil jar was marked when it arrived, and only Mirelda and Nessa held keys to the locked cabinet. The spoiled oil jar had no broken wax around the lid. Someone had opened it with a key. Mirelda did not tell Della or Aura. She walked to Nessa's cottage after dark. Light glowed behind a patched curtain. Before Mirelda could knock, she heard a man's voice inside. "You have 1 more day," he said. "Then Holt sends your brother's papers to the magistrate." Nessa answered through tears. "I did what you asked. People were hurt." "No one died. Stop making a tragedy from a rash." Mirelda moved to the edge of the window. A stranger stood with his back to her. He wore a dark riding coat and mountain boots. The left sole showed a broken line. On the table lay Oda's torn notebook page. "I will not do more," Nessa said. The man seized her wrist. "Your brother stole from Holt. The magistrate will send him away for 5 years. Your children will learn what hunger means. Unless you want that, you will leave the side door unbarred tomorrow night." Mirelda's first feeling was rage. It rose so fast that her hands curled into fists. She could push through the door. She could use the strength people mocked and throw the man into the street. Then she heard Nessa's children breathing in the loft above. She remembered Oda's warning about knives. Learn who is holding it. Mirelda stepped back into the darkness and waited. When the stranger left, she followed him at a distance. He crossed the lower road, entered Baron Holt's warehouse, and locked the door behind him. Mirelda returned to Nessa's cottage and knocked. Nessa opened the door. The moment she saw Mirelda's face, her knees gave way. "Please," she said, "please do not hate me." Mirelda entered and closed the door. "Where are the children?" "Asleep." "Did you change the oil?" Nessa covered her mouth. Her sob was answer enough. Mirelda felt the betrayal like a break beneath her ribs. This woman had eaten at her table. Mirelda had held Nessa's daughter through a fever. She had built a fund so Nessa would never have to choose between medicine and rent. Yet she forced herself to ask, why? My brother owed Baron money. He changed numbers in the warehouse book to hide what he took. Baron found out. He said he would send the papers to the magistrate unless I helped him. At first he only wanted the recipe page. Then he made me give his man the cabinet key. I thought they would spoil one batch. I did not know they would send it to the hotel. I swear, Mirelda, I did not know. You could have told me. He said he would ruin my brother, then take my cottage for the debt. He said no one would believe a widow who worked for an obese washerwoman. Mirelda closed her eyes. The insult was familiar, but in Baron's mouth, it had become a tool placed against Nessa's fear. He was right about one thing, Mirelda said. You betrayed me. Nessa began to shake. I know. Look at me. Slowly, Nessa raised her face. I will not pretend this did not happen. Trust is not a torn cloth we can mend before morning. People were hurt. Every woman in the workshop may lose her living. You will tell the truth before the council. Terror filled Nessa's eyes. He will send my brother away. Your brother changed the records. Yes, but Baron made him do it after months of unpaid wages. Baron told him to move money between accounts so the tax collector would not see it. When my brother tried to leave, Baron called it theft. Mirelda's anger became colder. Are there copies? My brother kept notes. He hid them near the old North mine. That is where Ivo went. Nessa stared. Ivo knows. Not enough. Neither do I. Mirelda stood. Tomorrow you will go to the workshop as usual. You will say nothing. Leave the side door unbarred. But the man will come. I know. What will you do? Mirelda looked at the small cottage, the children's worn shoes beside the fire, and Nessa's frightened face. I am going to let Baron believe he is winning. Ivo returned just before dawn. Mirelda found him sitting on the laundry steps, with blood dried along one sleeve. Her fear pushed every other thought aside. Are you hurt? She asked. Not badly. That is not an answer either. He looked up at her. A branch cut me. You expect me to believe a branch stole my notebook page? No. He reached into his coat and pulled out a strip of boot leather, stamped with a small burned symbol. The man in Nessa's cottage wore my brother's boots. I followed him to Holt's warehouse after he left. Mirelda sat beside him. You saw me. I saw you following him. I stayed behind you. Despite everything, a faint laugh escaped her. Then we were a very poor parade. Ivo's expression softened, but only for a moment. His name is Garin Pike. Years ago, my brother and I carried goods through the mountains for Baron's father. We thought they were cloth and medicine. Some were stolen tools. Some were silver taken from mining camps. When I learned the truth, I went to the district guard. Baron's father paid a clerk to destroy my statement. My brother was blamed for everything. He died in a prison camp. Mirelda looked at the burned symbol on the leather. The mark on your pack. It belonged to the transport company. Baron kept the old gear. Garin is wearing my brother's boots because he knows I will recognize them. He wanted you to suspect me. Why did you avoid Constable Wren? Wren was the clerk who destroyed my statement. The last hidden door opened. Behind it was not danger, but shame and grief. Mirelda touched the edge of Ivo's sleeve. You should have told me. I thought silence would bury it. Silence does not bury pain. It gives pain a private room. He looked toward the stream. When I saw the paddle in your hands last night, I understood what my silence had cost. Mirelda's voice became unsteady. I wanted to trust you. You should not trust a man only because he brings herbs and looks at you kindly. No, but I should be able to trust a man after he tells me the truth. Then I am telling it now. She studied his watchful gray eyes. All of it. All I have. Mirelda breathed out slowly. Good, because I need your help. They made their plan at the work table, while the sky grew pale. Nessa's brother, Pell, would guide Ivo to the old North Mine and retrieve the hidden records. Mirelda would remain at Senn House. She would let Garin enter through the unbarred side door, but every jar he touched would be marked. Della and Aura would watch from the dye house. Father Dorin, who still carried guilt over abandoning Mirelda's laundry, agreed to witness the entry. Mirelda did not involve Constable Wren. What if Garin carries a weapon? Father Dorin asked. Then no one confronts him, Mirelda said. We need truth, not a hero's grave. Ivo frowned. You will not stay inside alone. He expects the workshop to be empty. Then let it be empty. If he takes the ledger, I need to see which one. You have seen enough danger. Mirelda placed both hands flat on the table. Do not mistake gentleness for obedience, Ivo. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought they would argue. Then he nodded. Stay near the rear window. If he comes toward you, leave. Agreed. Say it as if you mean it. I will leave if he comes toward me. That evening, Mirelda extinguished the lamps and hid behind the curtain that separated the old laundry tubs from the workshop. Rain whispered on the roof. Across the yard, a thin line of light beneath the dye house door told her the witnesses were in place. Every slow minute made her more aware of her breathing. Near midnight, the side door opened. Garin Pike entered without a lamp. He moved directly to the oil cabinet and used Nessa's key. He removed a small bottle from his coat, poured liquid into 2 jars, and replaced their wax seals with false ones. Then he crossed to Mirelda's desk. He searched the drawers until he found the hotel contracts and Beren's written offer to buy the recipe. He tucked both into his coat. Mirelda's heart pounded. Beren had sent Garin not merely to spoil soap, but to remove proof of his motive. Garin turned toward the rear curtain. For one terrible second, Mirelda thought he had heard her. She backed toward the window. Outside, a loose roof tile fell and shattered in the yard. Garin hurried to the door. Mirelda waited until his footsteps faded, then crossed the room. The tile had not fallen by accident. Ivo stood in the darkness near the stream. You were supposed to be at the mine, she whispered. Pell knew the path. I came back. You nearly frightened him toward me. He was already moving toward you. How did you know? Your shadow moved. She wanted to be angry. Instead, relief made her knees weak. Ivo caught her elbow. Did he touch you? He asked. No. Did he take anything? Exactly what we needed him to take. Father Dorin, Della, and Aura crossed the yard. They had seen Garin enter and leave. On the cabinet handle was soft sealing wax Mirelda had spread before dark. It held the clear print of Garin's thumb. Inside the cabinet, the 2 jars he had opened contained a blue industrial cleaning liquid sold only by Beren Holt. Pell returned at sunrise carrying a metal box from the North Mine. Inside were copied ledgers showing years of false charges, withheld wages, and secret purchases through Beren's warehouse. There was also a letter signed by Beren, ordering Pell to move funds between accounts. Ivo found something else beneath the box. A small packet of statements written by miners whose tools had vanished years earlier. Ivo's original complaint was among them, bearing the stamp of the district guard and a note in Constable Wren's handwriting. Hold from record by request of H. Ivo read the line twice. His hands trembled. Your brother's name can be cleared, Mirelda said. He will never hear it. No, she stood close beside him. But you will. Ivo closed his eyes. When he opened them, years of guarded fear seemed to have shifted. It had not disappeared, but it no longer owned the whole room inside him. The council hearing was set for market day. Beren had demanded it, certain that he would stand before the town as a protector of public health. He arrived in his blue coat and placed 3 damaged bars of soap on the council table. Constable Wren stood at his right shoulder. Garin waited near the rear wall in a clean shirt, his mountain boots polished. Mirelda entered with Ivo, Nessa, Della, Aura, Pell, and Father Dorin. She wore her dark green dress, Her braid lay over one shoulder. 100 people filled the hall, and more stood outside beneath the rain. Bracken began before the council leader called for quiet. "This woman has sold dangerous goods to decent families. She works without proper learning, using animal waste in a filthy laundry. Her carelessness has injured visitors and stained the name of Bracken Vale." Murmurs moved through the room. Mirelda remembered standing behind the butcher's shop with 2 heavy pails, while these same people laughed. She remembered every customer who had withdrawn a bundle, every useless mold, and the night she cried beside the stove. Fear pressed against her ribs, but it was no longer alone. Anger stood beside it. So did love, work, and proof. Councilwoman Astor raised a hand. "Mirelda Senn, what do you say?" Mirelda placed 1 good bar of Vale balm on the table. "I say that Mr. Holt is correct about one thing. The returned soap was dangerous. As soon as I learned that, I closed my workshop and paid the doctor's fees for every person affected. I did not hide the harm." Bracken smiled. "Then there is nothing more to discuss." "There is a great deal more." Mirelda set down the contaminated jar. "This oil contains a strong cleaning liquid that is not part of my recipe. Only one shop in Bracken Vale sells it." All eyes moved toward Bracken. He laughed. "Half the town buys supplies from me. In large metal tins, yes. This bottle came from a private shipment received 3 weeks ago. The number is recorded on the base." The council leader examined it. Bracken's smile faded slightly. Mirelda continued. "Last night, Garin Pike entered my workshop with a copied key. Father Dorin, Delarue, and Aura Bell saw him. He opened my cabinet, poured this liquid into 2 jars, and stole papers from my desk." Garin pushed away from the wall. "That is a lie. Then show the council your coat." His hand moved toward the pocket before he could stop himself. The room noticed. Constable Wren stepped forward. "No citizen is required to submit to a search based on the word of these women." "No," Mirelda said, "but perhaps he will submit based on the word of the priest." Father Dorin stood. "I saw Garin Pike enter Senn House at 11 minutes before midnight. I saw him leave carrying papers beneath his coat." Garin's face hardened. He turned toward the side door, but Ivo was already standing there. Ivo did not threaten him. He simply looked at the boots on Garin's feet. "Those belong to my brother," Ivo said. Garin glanced at Bracken. It was a small movement, but it carried the weight of guilt. Mirelda placed the strip of marked leather beside the contaminated jar. "Mr. Holt used those boots to make Ivo appear responsible. The print beneath my window matches the broken left sole. The transport mark inside the boot matches records found at the North Mine." Bracken struck the table with his palm. "This is foolish theater. Vey is a known criminal." "No," Ivo said. "I was a witness you paid to silence." Pell opened the metal box. One by one, he laid out copied ledgers, letters, wage records, and Ivo's buried complaint. The council members leaned forward. Bracken's face lost all color. Constable Wren tried to take the old complaint, but Councilwoman Astor covered it with her hand. "You will remain where you are." Nessa stepped into the center aisle. She was trembling so badly that Mirelda could see it from across the table. "My name is Nessa Kaur," she said. "I worked at Senn House. Mr. Holt threatened to accuse my brother of theft if I did not help him. I stole Mirelda's notebook page. I gave Garin a key to the oil cabinet. I believed they would ruin one batch. I was wrong. People were hurt because I was afraid. Someone called her a traitor from the back of the hall." Nessa flinched. Mirelda turned toward the voice. "She betrayed me," she said. "She is also telling the truth when a lie would be easier. Both things can be true." Nessa looked at Mirelda with tears on her face. Bracken pointed at her. "You admit she is a liar, yet you expect the council to believe her." "I expect the council to believe records, witnesses, marked bottles, stolen papers, and your own signed letter." Mirelda lifted the letter from the metal box. "Nessa's confession is not the whole case. It is one honest part of it." The hall became very quiet. Rain tapped against the high windows. Mirelda looked at the people who had mocked her, abandoned her, and returned only when her soap became useful. She could have begged them to see her goodness. She could have asked to be welcomed back into their favor. Instead, she placed both scarred hands on the council table. "You laughed when I collected what others threw away," she said. "You said a woman of my size had no discipline. When my first batches failed, you treated failure as proof that I should never have tried. When the soap succeeded, many of you came to my door and called me clever. Then one rumor sent you away again." Several people lowered their eyes. "I will not ask this town to love me," Mirelda continued. "Love that disappears at the first whisper is only comfort wearing a kind face. I ask for the same law that protects Mr. Holt's shop. I ask for the truth to be entered into the record. I ask for the accounts he gained through lies to be returned, and I ask that every woman whose wages he withheld be paid." Councilwoman Astor looked at Barron. "Do you deny that this is your signature?" Barron did not answer. Garin suddenly pulled the stolen hotel contracts from his coat and threw them onto the table. "He paid me," he said. "He said the laundress would fold after one bad week." Barron spun toward him. "You fool." That was the moment the room changed. Until then, Barron had still been a respected merchant facing troubling claims. With those two words, he became a guilty man furious at an accomplice. Constable Wren moved toward the door. Two district officers entered from outside. Mirelda had sent copies of the evidence to Ashcombe before the hearing. The officers took Wren's badge and asked Barron and Garin to remain for questioning. No one cheered. The truth was too heavy for celebration. Barron looked at Mirelda as the officers approached. His old smile was gone. "You think this makes you one of them?" he asked quietly. "They will always see what you are." Mirelda felt the old wound open, but it did not control her answer. "So will I," she said. "That is why you could not defeat me." The council cleared Senn House of wrongdoing before sunset. Barron's shop was closed during the investigation. His private accounts were frozen, his false contracts cancelled, and the hotel orders he had taken from Mirelda were returned to her. In the weeks that followed, more workers came forward. Barron had withheld wages, changed debts, and sold weak goods in fine packages for years. He did not go to a dark dungeon or vanish forever. His punishment was quieter and, to Mirelda, more fitting. He had to stand in the same market where he once ruled and watch customers pass his locked door on their way to Senn House. Constable Wren lost his position, and Ivo's brother received a formal pardon, written too late for the dead man to read, but not too late for the truth to carry his name. Ivo kept the paper folded inside his coat for many months. Nessa did not return to work at once. Mirelda paid her final wages and asked for the workshop key. Nessa gave it back with both hands. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asked. Mirelda's eyes filled, because there was no easy answer that would honor them both. "I do not know." Nessa nodded, as if the words were deserved. "But your children will not go hungry," Mirelda added. "The Winter Fund belongs to every woman who helped build it." "I will not use kindness as a leash." Nessa began to cry. "You are better than I am." "No. I am trying to be better than what was done to me." 3 months later, Nessa returned to testify in a district hearing. Afterward, she came to Senn House every Friday, not as an employee, but as a student. She learned bookkeeping from Mirelda and eventually found work managing accounts for the Ashcombe Hotel. Trust between them did not rise from the ashes in a single beautiful moment. It returned in small, careful pieces, a truthful record, a kept promise, a conversation that did not avoid pain. Mirelda learned that forgiveness did not require her to forget, and mercy did not require her to hand someone the same key twice. Orders filled the workshop again. Mirelda expanded into the old dye house and added wide windows, clean stone floors, and a proper cooling room. Above the main door, Aura painted a simple sign, "Senn House Soap and Remedies." Beneath it, in smaller letters, she added, "Nothing useful is waste." Women began arriving from beyond Bracken Vale. Some had visible scars, Some carried babies. Some were too old for the mills or too quiet for market work. One woman had spent 10 years being told that a tremor in her hands made her useless. Mirelda gave her the job of weighing dried herbs because the brass scale did not care if a hand trembled before it became steady. Another woman could not read. Della taught her letters from the labels after work. Mirelda turned the rooms above the dye house into temporary bedrooms. No one stayed without helping, but help took many forms. Some chopped wood, some watched children, some stirred pots, washed cloth, or read aloud, while others wrapped bars. Senn House became more than a workshop. It became a place where a person could arrive ashamed and leave with wages, knowledge, and a name spoken with respect. The town praised Mirelda now. Council members invited her to dinners. The butcher who had laughed beneath his awning began telling visitors that he had supplied her first pail of fat. Father Dorin called her work a blessing in a Sunday sermon. Mirelda accepted useful partnerships and fair contracts. She did not accept false memories. When Tomas said, "I always knew you would make something of it," she answered gently, "No, you did not. But you can choose to know better now." Some people called that bitterness. Ivo called it an accurate ledger. He remained beside her through the busy summer. He built drying racks, mapped safe paths for herb gathering, and taught the women which plants must never be confused. The mystery around him slowly gave way to ordinary details. He hated turnips. He could repair almost anything except a clock. He woke from bad dreams during storms. He kept a smooth grey stone in his pocket because his mother had given it to him when he was a boy. One evening in early autumn, Mirelda found him sitting near the stream. Golden leaves moved over the water. He held his brother's pardon in one hand. "I used to think I stayed on the mountain because I preferred being alone," he said. "The truth is, I was waiting for someone to accuse me again." Mirelda sat beside him. The ground was cool, and the stream carried the scent of wet stone. "And now? Now I think I stayed because I did not believe I was allowed to begin again." She understood that feeling too well. Who did you think gave permission? People like Wren, people like Holt. They give nothing. They only stand at doors and pretend they built the whole house. Ivo looked at her. "You built your own. With help. You let me help. That was not charity, Ivo. Your herbs saved the first good batch. The soap would have been good without them. Too much pine." His mouth lifted. Only a little. They sat close enough that their shoulders touched. Mirelda had imagined this kind of moment in younger years, but in those dreams she had always been thinner, prettier, and somehow less herself. She had believed love would come only after she apologized with her body. Beside Ivo, she felt no need to become smaller. "People will talk if you keep sitting this close to me," she said. "People talk when I stand on the other side of the street. They will say the strange mountain man and the fat soap maker deserve each other." His grey eyes held hers. Would that be an insult? Mirelda's heart beat harder. "Not to me." Ivo lifted one scarred hand and touched her cheek. His fingers were warm. He did not move with pity or surprise. He looked at her as he had looked at the first bar of Vale balm, seeing not what the town had named, but what patience and truth had revealed. "Nor to me," he said. Their first kiss was quiet. No church bells rang, no one in the workshop saw. The stream moved around stones, leaves turned in the current, and the mountains kept their long silence. Mirelda rested her forehead against his and laughed softly when his nose brushed hers.
"What?"
he asked.
"Nothing. That is not an answer. I learned it from you."
Winter returned to Bracken Vale, but Senn House no longer leaned cold and dark beside the stream. Warm light filled its windows before dawn. The workshop smelled of honey, cedar, mint, and the rare mountain balm Ivo gathered from sheltered slopes. Women moved between the tables, talking and singing. Children practiced reading beside the stove. Mirelda's scarred hands still ached on cold mornings, yet she no longer hid them. They had turned dirty cloth clean, failed more times than the town knew, built a business, protected frightened women, and held evidence steady before a room that wanted her to tremble. On the anniversary of her first successful batch, Mirelda made 12 bars of Vale balm from Oda's original recipe. She wrapped 11 for the women of Senn House. The final bar she carried to the market bell. Rain had fallen the day of the hearing, but now light snow drifted through clear air. Beron's old shop stood empty across the square. A new sign in the window announced that the building would become a school for trade and bookkeeping in the spring. Mirelda had bought it at a lawful auction, using profits from the hotel accounts Beron had tried to steal. She planned to name the school after her grandmother. Ivo joined her beneath the bell. "Why bring soap here?" he asked. "This is where I stopped asking permission. I thought that happened behind the butcher's shop. That was where I pretended I did not need it. This is where I learned I truly did not." She placed the bar on the stone ledge beneath the bell. Someone passing through the square might take it. Perhaps that person would need it. Perhaps they would only enjoy its clean scent. Mirelda did not need to know. Across the street, Della opened the workshop doors. Ora carried out baskets for the morning market. A new worker swept snow from the step, while Nessa, visiting from Ashcombe, checked a delivery list. Life moved around Mirelda without asking whether Bracken Vale fully approved of the shape it had taken. Ivo offered his arm. Mirelda slipped her hand through it. "The council dinner begins at 7, he said. "We are not going. You accepted the invitation." "I accepted it so they would know I was choosing not to go." Ivo gave her a sideways look. "Your grandmother truly was dangerous. You have no idea." They walked towards Senn House together. Mirelda's dark green coat moved around her broad body. Her steps were steady. People greeted her as she passed. Some greetings were warm, some embarrassed, and some careful. She returned each one with the exact amount of kindness it had earned. At the footbridge, she stopped and looked back at the town. Bracken Vale had tried to teach her that dignity was a prize given to those who pleased the crowd. It had mocked her body, doubted her mind, abandoned her at the first failure, and praised her only after she became profitable. Once, that acceptance would have felt like victory. Now she understood how small it was. Her true victory waited across the stream. It was in the bright windows of Senn House. It was in the winter fund, the curing shelves, the school that would open in spring, and the women who no longer begged cruel employers to see their worth. It was in Nessa's honest return, after betrayal, and in Ivo's past, finally spoken aloud. It was in the fact that Mirelda could remember every insult without believing any of them. Ivo squeezed her hand. "What are you thinking?" Mirelda looked at the mountain man, who had brought herbs to her darkest room, then at the workshop she had built from things other people threw away. "I am thinking my grandmother was right," she said. "Waste is only waste when no one has the patience to change it." "That is what you said." "Then perhaps she learned it from me." Ivo laughed, and Mirelda joined him. Their laughter crossed the water and reached the workshop before they did. The women inside lifted their heads. The door opened. Warmth spilled over the snowy path. Mirelda walked toward it without making herself smaller. She did not need the town to forgive her for taking up space. She did not need Beron's fall to prove she could rise. She did not need applause, pity, or permission. She had work that healed tired hands, a home that welcomed the unwanted, and a man beside her who knew that quiet faith could be stronger than public praise. For most of her life, Mirelda Senn had been treated like something excessive, something the world would be kinder without. But the world had been wrong. Her strength was not too much. Her hope was not foolish. Her body was not an apology. Like the rich soap cooling in the molds, her life had been shaped by heat, pressure, failure, patience, and care. What emerged was not what Bracken Vale expected. It was something stronger, gentler, and entirely her own.